Alrighty, so let us get into it. So today I want to take a look at 1, 2, 3, 4. Who knows if I'm going to be getting to all of them, but I will do my best. This is a Blitz critique hour, so I'm going to go quickly through each one and talk about the main problem behind each one. And hopefully you guys pick something up. I'm not going into any in-depth painting. If I do, it'll probably just be one of the 4 of them. So the first problem with this one is that you are drawing eyes that look like they are looking down. That is happening because the eyeball's general mass, as well as the iris, sit heavily beneath the lines of the line that intersects between the inner and outer corner of the eye. I will show you in a second what that means. So right now what I'm doing is lifting the iris above that point so the character looks like they're looking forward. The reason I know this was accidental is because there was a time in my development as an artist when I was drawing a lot of the eyes looking down and I did not know why they were looking down. Everyone else thought they were looking down. I thought the face was looking forward. The eyes were looking forward, but I was wrong. For many years, I thought that. And then eventually when I revisited my old art and looked at it, I'm like, wow, it just looks like it's looking down. And then I discovered that it actually has to do with the inner and outer corners of the eye. So what I'm trying to do right now is get the eyes to be symmetrical. So bear with me. So I am just making them symmetrical. Symmetry is a fundamental of anatomy. All right, write that back to me. So symmetry is really important. That's why I spend so much time on it. Okie dokie. So just over here. So before, after, before, after. Let us take a look again. Before, after, before, after. So when your characters look like they're looking down, it is because the eyeballs have dragged the upper eyelid down as they look down. So look down right now. Your upper eyelid follows your eyeball. It's kind of like its pet attached to it, protecting it at all times. So that's what the upper eyelid's role is, from the lashes to the lid itself to the fact that the eye is concave. So the reason why it looks like it's looking down is because the upper eyelid, we see a lot more upper eyelid. Do you see that? We see a lot more upper eyelid than white of the eye. And now I just want her to look like she's looking directly at me, the viewer. Beautiful job on the skin. Absolutely beautiful job. There are some issues here and there, but I think all in all it looks okay for African skin tone. I think that the whites are too white in certain areas. They should be a kind of a smaller line of highlight. But let's take a look at the before and after. Before, after, before, after. So what I did is I made the eyeball sit mostly above this line. Do you see that? That's how you make an eye look like it's looking forward. Whereas yours, the average of the eyeball was looking below this line, which is why it looked like it was looking at my collarbone instead of my eyes. And that's why the eyes you draw look like they're looking down all the time, because you guys forgot that the eye is a functional mechanism. It needs to move. It's not just about drawing eyelids and an eyeball in between. It's not just about the symbolic image of the eye. It's not just about getting all of the the things on the list, check. You know, I got that, I got that, I got that. No, there's also the function, the mechanical function of the eye, the movement of the eye has to be addressed. All right, so before, after. All right. So this reason why I critique this instead of your latest day is because you still had this problem in your latest day. Next up, we have this one, which is Gwen, right? Gwen, is this Gwen? Where is Gwen's other hand? Is it this? No, no, this is just bad photography at this point. Do not put the hand in a way that is hard to see it. If I was a photographer and the model posed like this, I'd be like, no, fix your pose because your hand is in an awkward spot with the camera. It just looks like a bunch of sausage links. You need to do something with your arm so that we can see the side of your arm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to really quickly lasso what I can from this point. I'm not going to try to repaint this. Okay. So actually, I do have to take something out, which is the other leg. Ugh, I'm getting so dizzy looking at this. So messy. I guess you were just trying to duplicate the same pattern they had, right? But let's see what we can do with the clone stamp tool. Excuse me? What's going on? Why isn't it doing it? Why isn't it doing it? What's going on? Oh, because I had another layer. Duh. So I'm just trying to get rid of this leg right here. Okay. With as little effort as possible. By the way, I'm sorry about my sniffles, and just in general, throughout my channel, I have a thyroid problem. It makes me very cold all the time. And so I'm always sniffling. I'm always cold. I'm always chilly. I'm always shivering. All right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know it's gross. I don't mean to gross you out. So before I address the other leg, we got to fix some of this anatomy right here, okay? So I'm just going to grab this arm. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to try to place it somewhere so that we have another arm, like we have something else going on in this pose. So there's missing anatomy. There's the missing bone structure. Keep sniffling, queen. Okay, so right when I enter liquefy. So what we need to do is address all of the bones of the knees. So we're going to get some bones out here. Bones are more rigid than fat. What does that mean? That means they have very geometric shapes to them in general. They're more straight. So if there's a straight line where usually we have tons of bone, right now, push your chair back. Put your hand on your shins, your shin bones, which is the front bone of your lower leg, right under your knee, facing forward. Very bony, very straight. Now touch the back of your calves. Very circular, very jiggly, okay? Very sausage-like. So we don't have this equal sausagey shape, okay? We don't have that. We have one side that is bone, which means more straight. And we have one side that is fatty, which means more curvature. For females, it's much more curved than that. Then we've got the bone structure of the heel. So we do have a round heel, but right after that, we get the sole of the foot, I guess we can call it, I don't know. And then we have the toes. The toes, let's just make them pointed, ballet style, just like that. And then we've got the ball of the foot, I guess we can call it, which is right under the toes. And then I'm going to try to clean this mess up. Okay, so we made a bony knee, now we're going to give the thighs more of a circular look. So the thighs have the bone right inside, like a corn dog. The popsicle is inside the thigh like a corn dog, which means that we don't have bone sitting in the front like we do with the shins. So this area gets to be very fatty. All right, and then we've got her bone structure, her butt. So the bone structure of the thighs, there is none. It goes right into the curvature of the bum. So it's like almost one big, really, really curved hillside. You don't want to show too much bone structure around the butt or thighs, because at that point we're talking really, really underweight. I'm sorry if that was offensive to anyone who is underweight. I'm just trying to describe body types. I really don't mean to offend anyone who has a certain body type or insecurities about their body type. And then we have the shape of the breasts, which is a silhouette. She's more athletic, so really she didn't have much. I think she had a very small cup size, if I remember. I don't know, I could be wrong. There's like a million renditions. And then there's the rib cage, which is very bony. So we want to show a quick jutting of the rib cage. And then we do that. And then we've got the elbow, which is mostly straight into the forearm. There's a little bump in the forearm, the bump of the wrist, and more length to the hand, to the arm, sorry. So, before, after. Before it looked kind of like a doll, like a plushy, sewn or knitted doll of the character instead of actual bone structure. So just pick a spot and it's before and after. So that's really the issue that I see with this. The second issue is that the pose. The pose was just terrible. It was, you had two legs doing the same thing and they were upset. So you need to do something with the other leg. The other leg needs to get a life and stop copying its sister and just try to do its own thing. You think it's crazy, but this is the thing that I think of in my mind. Like, these are the stories I attach to things. It's so crazy. But yeah, it needs to go get a job, get its own thing. Why is it copying its sister all the time? So what I want to do is that I want to make the gesture a little bit more interesting by fixing the leg so that we have just one different gesture. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just letting the other leg do its own thing. And give something else for the gesture. Create some variety in the movement. Add some diversity in the limbs and the asymmetry of the gymnast's pose. So we are just being more careful with the gesture so we don't create a boring mirrored image. All right, so now this leg has started doing its own thing. Okay. And now the gesture looks more interesting because we are now looking at a variety of motion, not just a mirrored image of one motion for the leg. And then we bring in the other arm. The other arm could be doing something like that. Honestly, the other arm could do anything. Anything is better than what you had before, which is pretty much nothing. The other arm could be over here, could be over here. Okay? So the moral of the story, apart from the copycat sister, the moral of the story is you need to look up a reference, all right? And you need to pick a good reference, good photography, good posing, good model. And you need to start doing a little bit more thumbnailing so that you can explore the gesture before it's too late, before you've put so much work into it, you're too scared to go back and fix anything. That point of no return where everything you do is precious because the painting might get damaged. Right? So we have something that's a little bit more interesting now. And now that I did that, I can finally correct some of the issues in the hips. So I'm guessing that she rotated. This is the leg in the back. And so we've got all this. The other part of the thigh should come through this way. One leg does look larger than the other, but honestly, you get the point of the critique. I really don't need to go back and change everything. Maybe I should. Yeah, one of these legs is really small, so let me just correct that. It's very easy. And I just want to make both toes kind of pointed ballet style. And give more volume for this thigh. Give more volume for this thigh as well. It looks a bit bigger. And then just maybe shrink this toe. Okay, so let's take a look at the before and after. So these are the things holding your painting back. These are the things that make it look weird. You forgot certain things. You chose a weird camera angle for the pose of the arm, or a bad pose for the camera angle. And you mirrored the legs, which is so boring. You could have done anything else. And that's why it wasn't as interesting to look at, because less was happening. Where's the other arm? The audience will ask. And you'll have to explain, oh, it's like this. Yeah, it can happen. This is right. Just because it's anatomically possible to point your hand at the camera doesn't mean it's good posing. Doesn't mean it's a good dance. Doesn't mean it's the right way to film that. Just because, yeah, hands can do this with a camera. That's not the point. And on top of it, it's a character that we know is extremely flexible and dance-like. If I'm not mistaken, I've never looked into the development of Spider-Man, but whenever they reference characters that are in flight. Good artists that work for Hollywood will reference all of those ribbon dancers that ribbon dancing with the ribbons. I don't know how to describe it. They just hang off the ribbons and they do crazy moves, and these people hanging off big ribbons and they're just holding the ribbons like that, and they do all kind of gymnastics and they just fall. And so I believe that's what they're referencing when they look at characters like this. They're referencing really high-level gymnastics, Cirque du Soleil, all that stuff. Really just like an extreme gymnastics. And the more they look at that stuff, the more they'll notice that there is this extremely open gesture quality, high energy, legs everywhere, arms everywhere. Nothing stays too symmetrical. When you're looking at Olympic gymnastics, things can be very symmetrical because it's all about performance and body control. But performative gymnastics is all over the place. It's crazy. So I believe they reference performative gymnastics when they are building characters like this and animating them. And those are all really, really crazy moves. For this one, this is a 14-day challenger. The issues with this one is light environment. Everything is dull, snooze fest. Everything is sleepy. All of the values are just fallen asleep. There's no contrast in the background. There's no white in the eyes at all. Everything is putting me to sleep. So, why did you do that, right? Like, you have to ask yourself, what am I being so careful for? Well, maybe you're worried about contrast. Maybe you saw that someone had too much contrast and you're just being careful. Maybe you don't know how to apply contrast. There is a good, there is a goodness behind being more careful with your grays. But here, it's not just carefulness with the grays, it's muddiness. Your grays are very, very muddy. And the only thing that'll pull you out of that is going back, finding the light source, and making sure that you are picking values that actually communicate with the values of the background, and just communicate with each other, vice versa. The background communicates with the values of the head. So I'm going to make the background value a little bit on the brighter side. It's not even that bright yet. But this value of this face is so muddy that honestly it's still reading. It's just very, very dull and muted values. Very washed out, but not washed out, because washed out usually has brighter values. It's just very, very muddy. And so I am trying to raise some of the values at the top of the head. I don't know what kind of complexion you're going for, so I'm going to go for a medium. That's what I always do. If I can't tell if you're going for a darker skin character or not, I usually just go for a medium. So now that we did that, and I'm just raising these values up. Again, I don't know how you're picking these values, if you are intending for it to read as a complexion, or it's just this accidentally found yourself with really muddy values and everything just kind of, I was just hoping the painting would look okay type of attitude. Which I understand, because there's so many things to manage when you're painting. It gets really, really difficult to remember everything that you have to do. All of the tasks you have to cross off your list. And that's the thing, you guys don't even make lists. Like the top tier scientists of the planet make lists. They make lists for everything. The people who organize the craziest events and the leaders of institutions have lists. And you guys don't even make lists to help you get more control and feel less anxiety while painting. You guys don't make lists, and you need to start making lists. Lists are the secret to success. Because the more lists you make, the less frustration you'll have in game while you're trying to render all of these crazy concepts, which are pretty abstract, all things considered. Art is hard to point at. Art is hard to describe. And when you don't have a list, you will find yourself too frustrated to give a damn about the light environment. But if you put the light environment on a list and you say, hey, are the values okay? Are the values in between this and this, as per whatever factoid you picked up from my classes or video? Make a master list just for you, from all the videos you've watched, from all across YouTube, across things you've ever learned, things you learned from other people. Make a list. And go to that list whenever you get confused in the middle of a painting, when you don't know where to go, you pushed it as far as you can, things still look weird and muddy. Go through that list. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What did I forget? You will not do this on your own. The human mind needs lists. And eventually that list will be memorized. And once it's memorized, it'll slowly become natural to you. Just common, just habitual. You'll start making all these good choices habitually. And then eventually, those habitual choices become skill. There's a process. Before the thing you learn becomes skill you have, there's this cooking process. It's a slow cooking. It's a slow cooking process, and it takes a while for it to finally boil down and process and render. But it takes a little bit of time. Okay. And a list will help you get through that period. The list will help you render that beef into a very the metaphors are through the roof today. The list will help you get through that time, that processing period. Okay, now I'm craving beef. All right, so I'm just blending out here, blending, trying to just make sense of these midtones you have, so we have more midtone variety. We don't just have one big muddy midtone. All right. No, the lesson of today is not eat more beef. And then I'm just cleaning up the eyebrows because the eyebrows feel just a little bit random. They're not really pointing at anything in particular, meaning they're not male or female. They're not old or young. They're just a little bit hairy. The hair on them doesn't follow any patterns. I don't feel like they're representing anything we're familiar with. They just feel a little bit like like character design eyebrows, which are like eyebrows that are just not, that they're there to be cool. They're not really there as like this attempt at practicing what actual anatomy does, which is something you're supposed to do on the 14-day challenge. All right, so it takes a long climb to climb out of the mud. It's literal mud. It's like it takes a while to just drudge through it. Is that a word? And all I'm trying to do right now is that I'm just trying to find wherever we have those missing midtones. And then of course there's the missing dark values, which are the dark spots. Those are all missing as well. So you skipped all the contrast, hauled ass with the gray and the mud gray, kept the light environment mega dark. Of course you ended up with mud. Why is that a bad thing? Because colors don't exist in mud, especially skin tones, even darker skin tones. These were grayish values. These were not values that can be enriched with saturated color. These were pastel values. So what I'm doing over here is just trying my best to like make the skin feel more alive and less dead, with cues from the background value to tell me what kind of highlight I can get away with surface moisture, oil, all of that. This is a human, so humans need liquid to function. And so all of that is visible on the skin. The skin is an organ. And so when you have skin that is dull and kind of dead and there's no moisture and there's no sweat and there's none of that natural glisten, then that's when the skin looks almost zombie-like or unalive. Okay. So I will show you the before and after. I just need to sniffle 1 second. Okay, so we are going to, again, I'm sorry about how sick I sound. I sound like a 5-year-old with a flu. So before, after. I still need to do more work, but I feel like this is a good spot to move forward. I kept her kind of darker skinned. There is one thing that we need to make sure we have, which is the shadow of the neckline just underneath. And that is really, really important shadow to have. Before, after. before, after. I hope this was helpful for you. Merge down and close. Now we got one more. We got 20 minutes left. Let's talk about this dude. So, very stiff gesture. The features and the size of this, the scale of the body parts, I guess, are permissible since he's an elf. The face, it's too human, where you have very fantasy anatomy, you have a very human face. First thing I'm going to get rid of are these god-awful laugh lines. Things that are visible, I have laugh lines. I love laugh lines a lot. But they have no place in art when you are trying to depict a type of character that is supposed to be cute. The things that happen in real life are not always acceptable in our drawings and in the world of our drawings. It just doesn't work. So what's the replacement? A big brush and shadow. That is acceptable. A line? No, it's going to read as wrinkles. It just does not work. Okay, so I'm just fixing that. The next thing is just the general gesture. He's not interacting with the fire in any way apart from looking down with his eyes. You have not tilted the head down. You have not done anything else. So I am literally just going to do this. I am going to go cray-cray and just do my best to make the character look like they're looking down. This has fixed that downward turn in the eyes. I'm going to give his face some expression. Hey man, I managed to firebend. Holy crap. And I'm going to make his eyes looking at the fire, crossing inward at the fire. Ooh la la, look at that. Ding, ding, ding. So many things are getting crossed off. So many things are starting to read. And I'm going to make one eyebrow slightly more excited than the other one. Like, wow, oh my God, I did it. And then I'm going to make his smile a little bit more excited. I'm going to make his eyes open up a little bit more. This is the first time that he saw the fire. That's the moment that we're drawing. We're not drawing the third time he firebended successfully. We're not drawing that one time he showed his grandma. We're drawing the very first time that he did it. And that means lots of energy, lots of excitement, lots of narrative force. And so that's why we are really amping up that expression. Okay, and I don't want it to look like an evil smile, so I just want to make it look like that. That jawline, that masculine football player jawline has no role here. Right? This is a very scrawny little elf guy who can't defend himself in the playground of his life. But he learned how to firebend and he's the chosen one. There will be an elf that can control the elements, and he will emerge and he will raise us out of the darkness as the Kwisatz and he will lead an army of fanatically. Okay, so we want to show that this is a special guy. All right, so we're putting in a lot of this effort to show that. So before, kind of look like Ron Weasley. After. All right, so I want to get rid of all this muddiness. Like, I know you're trying to make some shadows happen, but you have a lot of mud. You just went outside, grabbed some mud, and smeared it all over. You're battling the lines. You're battling the values. You have a lot of moments where you could have had just a simple mid-tone value, but instead you threw in too much. We don't have an upper eyelid highlight from this angle. I don't know why you even have a shadow outline for the lower eyelid, because it's just making him look evil. Just give us the edge, man. That's all we want. All right, get rid of that extra line. So many leftover lines. God, you guys are addicts. You guys love your lines. It will always be this way. It will always be this way. Because the line is the first thing you encounter as a human being to help you paint a drawing, or paint a picture, or learn an image, or attach words to images. So we will always be fighting against lines for all eternity until humankind kind of evolves in some way. But I'm trying to get rid of a lot of these leftover lines that are not doing you anything. They're not giving you anything. I'm not addicted. I can quit whenever. Oh, you love messy lines, sure, but your client won't. And your client will pick somebody else's portfolio and skip yours. So you have to find a good balance. And by messy lines, it's a very general term, what messy lines can mean. Messy lines can mean good messy or bad messy. Bad messy is when you have muddy presence, battling against the material, misrepresenting it, flattening the image. Good messy is when you have controlled messy, which is when it just feels like a professional drew, but on a relaxed day. So there's different types of messy. Right, and I'm just blending away some of those extra wrinkles you have, while also trying to reinforce this light environment that is the flame, basically. The flame is pretty much the only light source in this room. Then you have a long shadow, oopsie, long shadow that way. And then you have a little bit more highlight. This whole light scenario always brews a really, really scary environment. I mean, it's why it's used for horror movies and scary stuff when the light is coming from underneath, because what it does is it distorts the image. It distorts the face. And whenever anything distorts the human face, then it feels uncanny. And that's when our alert goes off. When something looks human but not quite human, we are used to the light coming from above as humans, because the light is the sun and it comes from above. We're programmed to want that. Then there's the gesture, which is so stiff, so stiff. So I am going to sever, actually I'm going to duplicate the layer, sever the head, go into liquefy, filter liquefy, and try to make the gesture feel a little bit less stiff. So he's just managed to make some fire. He's really proud of himself. He also doesn't want it to go out. So he is just protecting it almost, kind of huddling in with it, trying to just make it so that he doesn't lose it. He mustered up all this power or strength to try to get the fire to light up in his hands with his super duper powers. And so he doesn't want it to go out. And so he's kind of got his shoulders up, his neck is his head is huddled down, and his neck is gone, and he's just kind of just pushing in his head to kind of get closer to his flame that he made. Okay, so before, after, you see how much you get out of making the head closer to the body? And then I'm just going to make the chin look a little bit less like an old chin. Old chin's got bumps. So I'm just going to try to do that. And I also don't want there to be a weird tangent between the scarf. And maybe just like letting the scarf sit in front of the chin. How about that? Okay, so now I can liquefy the whole thing now that all the layers are together. And I just want the shoulders to look a little bit more curved, less broad, more scrawn. And I'm just gonna make the arms look a little bit less gigantic. So I'm just going to illuminate the ears. The ears should have a bit more highlight, midtones. There should be more light on the ears. They shouldn't be that closed off from the rest of the image. It would catch a lot of that light, I believe. Oops. I love elf ears. They're the best. I love drawing them. I love when people draw them. And then I'm just going to bring down their value a little bit with the dark. Keep them brightened, but not that much. All right. The thumb has joints. And the nails show the perspective of the thumb. Okay. And then there's also this big area between the thumb and the rest of the fingers that looks like fin, you know, that looks like fins. And then we've got less palm, less back of the hand, more finger. All right, and less back of the finger, more front of the finger. It's really hard to describe it. So we're seeing the fingers bend. All right, so, okay, and then we've got this, and then we've got this. All right, so starting to look a little bit more like hands. So before, after. So I want to bring that thumb in a little closer. The thumb, everything is trying to protect that little flame from going out. All right, same thing with the other side. I'm going to just cancel my liquefy, separate this hand, and then filter liquefy it. I'm almost done with the Blitz Critique Hour. So same thing, I'm gonna make it face the camera, less palm, more finger, and then just the bend of the fingers. And then there is the pinky kind of tucking in, the middle finger being taller than the others, not the other way around. And the nails being flat at the bed base. The pinky kind of tucking in. The thumb a little bit more chubby than the rest of the fingers. And flat on one side because it's facing away from the camera. So before, after, and then there's just the size. Okay, so I will try to delete where I can. And then there's the fact that the hands are all silhouetted. They are all in front of the flame. Anything in front of the flame means that it is going to be a silhouette. Anything in front of light is silhouetted. Don't be scared, just darken it. This is the light environment you picked. Then I'm going to do one last little thing, which is glow time, glow up time. We are going to get the soft brush on low opacity and we're going to make it glow. Because that's what light does. That's what it doth. Light doth glow. Write that back to me. In cursive, preferably. So when light glows, it actually adds this really realistic element to your drawing because that's the texture of light. Light as a texture glows. it is soft and it moves in soft texture pattern, if you can add it to the texture spectrum, because it's still a particle. And when it does that, it leaves behind a very soft silhouette in its shape, if the negative space was analyzed. That negative space is the result of many rays of light emerging and dispersing, resulting in a really soft pattern. Same way if you were to have like a, I don't know, what emerges in like smoke, sort of, when it emanates. It has a very dispersed, even pattern, but not quite smoke. So the candle is going to cast a shadow, his shadow against the background. The shadow is going to be lifted, so his ears are going to be like up here somewhere. And I will blur it in a second because that's the texture of light. The negative space, which is shadows of light, is soft. Bill Nye, the Science Guy. But it has to be my name. I don't know how I would sing my name in that. Bill. I'm not going to bother. And then I'm just going to cast a shadow there. And I'm going to try to hide the ears because I don't want them to look like horns. I just want it to look like the back of him is blurred. And I'm just adding that little dispersion, which is the soft radial, the Gaussian blur. So let's take a look at the before and after. Oh, is that my signature? Is that your signature? I don't know. I'm gonna get rid of it. Before, after, before, after. So you guys tell me, what did I change? Before, after. Do you see what I mean when I say uncanny? Do you guys see what I mean when I'm talking about the uncanny valley? It's you tried to give us this big childlike, you literally did this. You did this. You gave us a big childlike head. And then you gave it laugh lines. And then a small body. That's what you did. This is the cartoonified version of it. This is the emojied version of it. I mean, these laugh lines, art does not forgive you for them. Because as humans, we're programmed to find and seek them when we are looking at older people. I don't know why. Maybe that's evolution. Maybe that's just how we all recognize who's old and young. But laugh lines, I'm sorry, these are the rules. I don't mean to offend anybody. I have laugh lines. The people I love have laugh lines. So, and I love their face. I wouldn't change it. But in a drawing, no, it doesn't work because the world of the drawing has different rules. If you're trying to show a character that is smiling, that is also an elf, you do not use old man features on the elf. Okay? So, before, after. After, we also did a lot. We fixed the hands and the shoulders and the gesture. Do you see how the gesture is just more interactive with the flame? There's more going on now. All right, so before, after, before, after. If you guys want to submit your work for critique, all you have to do is go to istebrak.com. Click on the subreddit icon here. That'll take you to my subreddit, and Portrait Studio and everything is on my store. It's still on sale. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.